Hello, good evening. This is a special edition of the newsroom coming to you live from our studios in Georgetown and broadcast into you on E-Networks, Channel 1, Scar TV, NTN, and Tarsi TV in Bartica. In the headlines, soldiers and policemen carrying ballot boxes come under fire from the Venezuelan shore. The Guyana Elections Commission says it is fully prepared to conduct general and regional elections, and an official declaration could come on Thursday. PPP General Secretary Bharrat Jagdeo speaks about the work involved in getting voters out on Monday. With the news, I'm Neil Marks. We're glad you could join us. We begin this evening with some breaking news. The Joint Services is reporting that around 2:30 this afternoon, while escorting GECOM officials and ballot boxes along the Upper Cuyuni River in the vicinity of Bamboo near the Guyana-Venezuelan border, a Joint Services patrol came under fire from the Venezuelan shore. The escort team, which comprised ranks from the Guyana Defence Force and the Guyana Police Force, was conducting official duties in support of GECOM's ballot distribution to remote polling stations in Region 7. A total of 9 GECOM officials were aboard the vessels at the time. The patrol immediately returned fire and successfully maneuvered the escort team out of danger. No injuries were sustained by any personnel and no election materials were damaged or compromised. Despite the incident, the team safely continued its journey and all remaining ballot boxes were successfully delivered to their assigned polling stations at Kumang Landing, Kurutuku, and Dukwari Landing. The earlier drop-off at Tumbong was also completed without incident. The Joint Services said it remains alert and continue to coordinate closely with GECOM to ensure the security of all election-related operations. An investigation into the incident is underway. Now, voting opens at 6 Monday morning in Guyana's general and regional elections. On the eve of the elections, the Guyana Elections Commission held a press conference to address its readiness and any concerns. The newsroom's Vishani Raghavir, who was at the press conference, reports now live from GECOM's headquarters in Kingston.
Good evening and thank you, Neil. I'm coming to you live just outside GECOM's headquarters here in Kingston. And just a few hours earlier, GECOM, the Guyana Elections Commission, held its press conference on the eve of E-Day 2025. Now, this was a press conference that was led by the Chief Elections Officer, that's Vishnu Prasad. And in his engagement with reporters, he delved into the Commission's readiness for elections tomorrow, and he also addressed some of the matters raised over the past few days. Now, of course, the question on everyone's mind that Mr. Prasad needed no prompting before he answered was that whether GECOM is indeed ready to conduct elections tomorrow. Now, Mr. Prasad, of course, said that GECOM is fully prepared to conduct elections tomorrow, September 1st, 2025, and he said so before he delved into other concerns. So this is what he had to say.
Fully prepared to conduct the general and regional elections tomorrow, and this position is bolstered by feedback that we asked for and received from the returning officers even today that everything is in place for the packing of ballot boxes were completed in the presence of accredited political party agents from all contesting parties. The process was conducted according to statute and procedures in an ordinary and amicable atmosphere, again involving the political stakeholders, reflecting the spirit of cooperation among GECOM and the stakeholders. Distribution of materials is well underway. Trucks have left the GECOM compound over the past few days. Ballot boxes, ballots, and other supplies have been pre-positioned across the country to be distributed within adequate time for the opening of the poll at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. In some areas, materials have already been transported by river and by air to ensure and this has to do with our riverine, deep riverine and hinterland communities, that these polling stations too are fully equipped for the timely opening of the poll. Election readiness statistics. 757,690 registered voters across the country's 10 administrative regions are set to vote to elect candidates from 6 contesting parties. 2,790 polling stations will be operational across all 10 regions to facilitate the voting. A total of 13,925 polling day staff have been trained. 11,718 staff were employed. These staff have been trained to ensure consistency, transparency, and professionalism throughout the implementation of their respective tasks. The Guyana Police Force will deploy approximately 8,700 officers to maintain order during the electoral process on election day and beyond. Election observation will be conducted by approximately 500 local observers and about 200 international observers to contribute to transparency and credibility of the elections. Safeguards will include the involvement of accredited political party agents, observers, and candidates from their respective political parties. Usually emphasis is not placed on these people. Candidates, there is provision for the accreditation of candidates by district, candidates to the poll who can go into any polling station to observe the poll, candidates to the count who clearly has authority to be in a tabulation center.
That was the Chief Elections Officer Vishnu Prasad at the press conference held earlier today on the eve of E-Day 2025. Now, GECOM's readiness or GECOM's preparedness to conduct elections tomorrow wasn't the only thing that Mr. Prasad spoke about during the press conference. And of course, he was questioned by the reporters present there. So I'll just quickly delve into some of the other matters that were addressed at the press conference. One, the Chief Elections Officer also spoke about what he described as political mischief, and he made specific reference to videos circulating on social media and posts largely circulating on social media that sort of engaged in mis and disinformation about the elections process. Now, he clarified and he explained in great detail how and why it is virtually, how and why it's difficult for GECOM officials to interfere with the elections, because the process that will be unfolding tomorrow is one that will be observed by party agents, observers, and of course, there will be GECOM staff there, and there will also be police officers on standby to ensure that everything goes well during the voting process and then in the tabulation exercise afterwards. Aside from the concerns raised about political mischief, he also delved into the matter surrounding additional or a switch to polling stations, switching some of the polling stations. That was something that the People's Progressive Party Civic had raised with GECOM, and he said that the matter came up for discussion yesterday, that would be Saturday, and though the logistics manager of GECOM agreed that there were, I believe, 10 polling stations where access might be just a bit challenging for some of the voters, it was ultimately decided that the time was too make any changes. Beyond the matters concerning the polling stations, he also spoke about the approval of polling agents for 4 of the 6 political parties contesting the elections, those 4 parties, based on what GECOM said earlier, either gave late notice or submitted names at a late date or after the required date for the basically accreditation of their polling agents to just observe and be involved in the processes tomorrow. However, that same meeting yesterday that I mentioned, the decision was taken to allow these agents to be accredited. So those processes, once the commission agreed yesterday for that to happen, in the interest, as Mr. Prasad said today, of transparency and fairness to all parties involved, then began the processes of engaging the parties, of engaging the political representatives, of engaging the ROs, so that they would all be accredited and they would all be engaged in what has to happen before elections tomorrow. So those are just some of the matters that Mr. Prasad delved into today. Just to remind you, he spoke about GECOM's preparedness for the elections tomorrow, and he said GECOM is fully prepared. He spoke about political mischief, particularly with mis- and disinformation online. He addressed the story, or what has been happening with a request for polling stations, and he also addressed the approval of polling agents for the 4 political parties. That would be the We Invest in Nationhood, the Assembly for Liberty and Justice, the AFC Alliance for Change, and the Forward Guyana movement. That's all for me. Back to you in studio, Neil.
Thank you, Vishani. Vishani reporting there from GECOM headquarters in Kingston. I'd like to read to you now a press release coming from the Guyana Elections Commission. It is denouncing a false Facebook post by credible sources which alleged that GECOM staff assigned to a polling station at Hibiscus Drive, Petersall on the east bank of Demerara were chased out by the proprietor of the residence, which was supposed to be used as a polling station on Monday. GECOM said the speculations are blatantly false and does not in any way reflect the accurate account of the reasons for the movement of the polling station. GECOM said that it was contacted by the owner of the private residence earlier, indicating that he was no longer interested in his property being used as a polling station. As a result, other arrangements were made, and persons who were expected to vote at that polling station are now being advised that they will vote at the CARICOM General Insurance Company, which is located a short distance away from the original location at Hibiscus Drive in Petersall. GECOM said that stakeholders should be responsible in their reporting and verify information before publishing, especially at such a critical juncture. It said this type of misinformation and disinformation are disruptive and can cause unnecessary panic and confusion in an already heightened political environment. You're watching the newsroom. We're now joined on the newsroom by Jerry Gavaya, the chairman of the Private Sector Commission. Jerry, the PSC is one of the local organizations observing these elections. Tell me about your plans.
Sure. Well, first, thank you for having me on the show. We're very excited this year to field our observers. We actually have about 150 plus observers this year. The private sector has a proud history of observing all of the elections since 1992. And in the last 10 years, what we've actually done is taken it a step further and developed almost like an observation command center of sorts, so we can actually start to better coordinate the deployment and the information sharing between all stakeholders there. So we're super excited for it. A lot of the volunteers came out of the private sector and business community who are looking for a free, fair, and transparent elections.
Now, typically around this time, it's a very tense business environment, especially in the city. Can you tell me what the mood is like outside?
Growing up in Guyana and, especially in my teenage years as well, coming up to elections, the business community used to shut down. Regent Street used to be completely boarded up. People weren't leaving their houses and so on. And I can tell you that this year it doesn't have that feeling. Businesses are still continuing. Monday is a holiday, and I can tell you all my staff are really enjoying it. They're not scared. They're not locked up in their house. They're going to go vote, and a lot of them are probably going to go maybe grab a drink or grab some food. So I can tell you that the mood in the business community is a lot more relaxed, and I think it has to do a lot more with our confidence in the security forces. As part of our stakeholder engagement, we engaged with a lot of them, and we saw what they all have to offer. And I can tell you that they've done a lot of preparation, and we're very proud of them. And with that, it makes us feel safe so that we can continue.
And tell me who else you've been engaging with in the run-up to these elections.
Yeah, so we've actually engaged with as many stakeholders as we can, starting with the political parties. We reached out to the political parties, or they reached out to us, and we've met with them, primarily the PPP, AFC, and APNU. We've met with all the international observers in country, from the Carter Center to the Commonwealth, OAS, CARICOM, EU. We met with the entire diplomatic community. The ABCEU specifically are very active during our elections observing. We've met with the different local observer teams from, either AmCham, GCCI, Bar Association, and so on. And some of them are actually collaborating with us, and some of them we're coordinating with. We've met with all the joint services, so the GDF, the police, the fire, the prisons, and the nice thing about it is that what we have seen across the country, the private sector, we're lucky enough so that we have representation from all 10 regions across all the different sectors, and people are very involved in the elections from Region 1 to Region 10. And from the business community side, we've met with all the stakeholders, and I can tell you that we're ready. GECOM is ready, the joint services are ready, the political parties, I hope, are ready, and definitely the private sector is ready.
And in your engagements with GECOM, have you talked with them?
I have, yeah.
Have you talked to them about the need for early results, so as to reduce any tension that we usually get after elections?
Absolutely. So, I was very active during the 2020 elections, and that took 5 months to come to conclusion from elections day. So from a private sector standpoint, we are promoting fair, free, and transparent elections, but we're also adding an efficient and urgent elections. Meaning we want the process to happen. We believe that GECOM has done a very good job at setting up very robust processes. And what we need to do is let GECOM do the work, let the processes continue, and we believe that we can get quick results with the process, verified, true results, because we don't want another 2020 where it was 5 months of stagnation in the economy. A lot of the private sector, our investments and our engagement has actually 10x'd over the last 5 years. So, we want this to happen fair, free, and transparent, but we want to have it quickly. And we did bring that up with GECOM, yeah.
All right, so finally, what would you be doing tomorrow? Like, what exactly are you looking for in the private sector when you go to these different polling stations? That's
a good question. So what we're going to be doing is we are deploying our 150 plus observers around the country. Most of the observers are going to be starting in their home areas at their own polling stations. They will vote, and then we'll be conducting their own observation missions. We're looking for, when people come to the polling station, they're going to be the verification process of the voter. We're making sure that that is happening in accordance with GECOM's manuals, which are now public, by the way, which we're very happy for. We will do this at a few polling stations in the area. Some of us are going to be traveling a little bit outside of our home neighborhoods to get a good sampling of the different polling stations' activities. At the close of poll, we're actually going to be in the polling stations. We're going to be observing the statements of poll being prepared, and the party scrutineers and the GECOM staff working through the process to make sure that we're observing every step of the way. We will then, once the SOPs are prepared, then we're going to make our way over to the tabulation centers, and we will be there for that entire process as well. So, the private sector has been involved all the way from nomination day disciplined forces voting day, and now the general election. And
Thank
we'll
you
be
very-
here until the end.
Thank you very much, Jerry.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Neil.
No worries. General Secretary of the People's Progressive Party, Dr. Bharrat Jagdeo, says the work now is to mobilize every voter, stressing that the party's machinery is fully engaged across the country. In an interview with the newsroom, he also expressed confidence that the Guyana Elections Commission has the systems in place to deliver free, fair, and credible elections. Mr. Jagdeo, thank you very much for talking with me. Obviously, you've had a very long campaign, a very hard-fought campaign. Tell me about the work that you have left.
So right now we are focusing on the logistics of getting people to the polling place, getting them to vote, and ensuring that the vote is done openly, transparently, freely, and then having those votes counted also openly and transparently, and hopefully having an early declaration.
This work to get people out, is it a lot of work?
It is a lot of work. You see a lot about the political campaign. Many people see the speeches, they see the rallies, the meetings, the press conferences, the interviews. But behind all of this is an army of activists who are working on the ground, taking the messages to people's homes and also preparing what is crucial for the success at any election. So that is getting your polling agents trained, the street captains trained, the tent operators trained, people who will cook the food for your polling agent. All of that is behind the scene work that is vital to the success of any election. And I want to thank those people because often they're not the public face of the campaign. They are the quiet workers, and there are large numbers of them. And their role sometimes goes unheralded.
Do you get the sense that people are aware by now of where they have to go, to vote, or do you still have to do some of that?
Yes, we set up a hotline. So we're getting calls, not as many as before, because we have done quite a bit of work on the ground. But the hotline is still assisting people to find their names on the voters list. And hopefully if they have problems on election day, we will also be able to help navigate through those problems. So we're getting, I should say, a sizable amount of calls, but not overwhelming the system. And then there are lots of people who want to go back home and vote. For example, they may have moved to Region 3. They need assistance to get back to 6. We're helping with that too. So they can call into Freedom House, and we've been helping them to get back home to vote.
Can you tell me what would your polling agents be looking for in tomorrow's vote?
Well, first of all, the presiding officers have a crucial role to play because they're in charge of the polling places. So what we expect is people who are on the list, who are eligible to vote, that they are allowed to vote freely and in a very efficient manner. And our polling agents would be there to oversee that, to see that only those who are eligible to vote at these elections. Now, often you have groups of people who may not be on the list, who may just go there to create issues around the polling places and then claim they're not on the list, they're not being allowed to vote. So we have experienced that in the past. And from what I gather, the security forces and GECOM itself, they're looking to ensure that those people don't succeed should they go to the polling places with the intent of creating a disruption by falsely claiming they're not allowed to vote. So by now, everyone in Guyana would have had a chance to look at the voters list. The Carter Center and others said the list is not bloated as claimed by APNU and others. They would have had a chance to see whether they're on the list or not. And once they're on that list, they are eligible to vote. So if they show up to vote, they must be allowed to vote. And people don't have, they can vote with their ID card or with other documents, or even if they don't have a document, they can take an oath and then vote.
Is there any concern at all that you have about GECOM's preparations and their ability to conduct Monday's polls?
So far, they have worked very efficiently on Discipline Services Voting Day. And so I anticipate and I expect that the same sort of efficiency would translate to Monday, the 1st of September.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Several international observer groups are on the ground across the country for Monday's general and regional elections. The Commonwealth Secretary General has deployed an 11-member observer group to monitor every stage of the elections here. Leading the team is Mrs. Fikita Utoikamanu, the former Minister of Foreign Affairs of Tonga. I spoke with her earlier today. So thank you very much for your time. The Commonwealth has been doing these observer missions for 4 to 5 years. I wondered if you could talk to me first about why these missions are important.
Yes. The Commonwealth has undertaken these missions for 45 years in 45 countries. And specifically with Guyana, this is the 8th mission that the Commonwealth Observer Group has undertaken. These missions are really important to ensure that democratic principles are followed, and there is also transparency in the processes. And the Commonwealth supports. It's not only the election itself, but the whole election process. So the preparations leading to the elections, the observing of the elections, and then of course there will be a report issued by the observer group, and then a set of recommendations will be included in that report for follow-up by the government.
Can you tell me what are the principles that guide observer missions like yours?
Yes, so it's of course it's important that we encourage everybody to participate in the voting, because that is a right of every citizen to decide the leadership in the country. And then secondly, in terms of political parties being able to have the freedom to hold their campaigns. And then there's the institutional arrangements by the government, by GECOM, and of course that's also backed up by the legal framework for the elections.
So when you go about your work, what sort of principles do you operate by as observers?
So obviously the Commonwealth, but we also look at how the issues that we're looking at or the issues that we're observing also line up with the domestic laws as well.
So what would you be looking for in these elections?
Leading up to the elections, we hold consultations with all the stakeholders. So that includes all the presidential candidates, as well as civil society representatives from civil society, representatives from academic institutions, other international observer groups, but also engaging with the government at the highest political level, and also with GECOM.
And during the elections, what things will you be looking for? What are you trying to establish as an observer group?
So our observers have gone out to the regions that we are covering. So they will look at accessibility, that on the transparency of like all the signage, and then also they will be observing when people come in to place their votes, that people are freed and they're not influenced in any way when they do cast their ballot.
So then, what is your hope for these elections in Guyana and the way that they are run?
So, the hope is that the elections will be run in a fair and transparent manner, and the observers will report back on what they have observed during the voting period.
Why do we need observers? Can we do without them?
I think our presence here has been at the invitation of the government of Guyana. So in some sense, it's also important that the credibility of the process and the outcome is also supported or agreed by independent observers. You have the domestic, because there's I guess each of the main political parties will have their own observers on the ground, but it's also important that the election process also gets some credibility at regional, because we also have CARICOM and OAS observers on the ground, and then the wider international community with the European Union and the Commonwealth Secretariat.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, over 750,000 persons are registered to vote in Monday's elections. We thought we'd give you a breakdown of the number of registered voters in every district and also the number of new voters in every district. Here's a look. Now, the newsroom will be bringing you comprehensive coverage of Monday's polls. We will begin at 5 in the morning, and that's because, well, voting starts at 6. A lot happens in the polling station long before that. So joining me is Vishani Raghaber, and she will talk to us about how we intend to cover tomorrow from 5 all the way to the close of polls and beyond.
Sure, Neil. So I can tell you that our team will fan out all across the country to bring coverage as far and wide as possible. So we will be bringing live updates from across Region 4. That would be including Georgetown, the East Bank of Demerara, the East Coast of Demerara. We also have coverage in Region 3. We have coverage in Region 5 and 6, which I will be doing myself. And we will be getting updates from Region 10, and like I mentioned, from all administrative regions, but you can definitely look forward to first thing in the morning live coverage from Regions 3, 4, and 5. Now, of course, we will be following the presidential candidates as they go to various polling stations to cast their ballots tomorrow. And of course, everything that we do, we will be bringing a live coverage to you, our viewers.
Yeah, so that live coverage will come on E1, Scar TV, NTN, Tarsi TV in Bartica, and as usual, our social media pages. So we encourage you to follow us for that live coverage, again, beginning from 5 on September 1st, the date for general and regional elections in Guyana. I'm Neil Marks.
I'm Vishani Raghaber.
And take care.